Hi everyone, this is Omkar saying welcome to Lockdown series. These episodes are focused to bring awareness on mental health and its importance. Our guests will be sharing few tips and advices for the better mental health among students and will also be sharing their own way of coping and dealing with the mental well-being. And today we are joined by Nigel Cooper, who is the university's chaplain. Hi Nigel, how are you today?
Very well, thank you, Omkar, and thank you for asking me along.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. Do you have any tips or advices for the students at ARU on
Well,
mental health?
yes, well, I think I've got two thoughts. To say they were advice would be too strong because I feel I'm not necessarily terribly qualified. But my two thoughts are, first of all, I think we as human beings need rhythm and routine in our lives. And I've noticed that one of the differences between this generation, which has a lot of challenges with mental health, and sort of 50 years ago, is that when I was young, more or less every day was the same. I mean, not quite, but I went to school 6 days a week, and Sunday was different. But then Monday again would be just the same as the previous Monday. There was a lot of similarity and steadiness about it. And I think that was one of the things that, to some degree at any rate, helped people in coping with complex lives, because there was that rhythm and steadiness. So one of my pieces of advice is, if you can, get yourself into a regular rhythm so that at the same time every day you do similar things. I've heard, for example, that the army believe that one of the most important things you can do is to make your bed as soon as you get out of bed in the morning, because that means A, that you've done something, you've made an achievement right at the start, and secondly, you've got into that rhythm that the rest of the day is then going to follow through. So so my first piece of advice, if that's not too strong a word, is do what you can to get some sort of a rhythm both within the day and between the weeks, so that you're steady. Don't worry, don't chase after adrenaline moments too much. My second piece is that I think a lot of the problems that we face today, and young people particularly, is a sense of helplessness, a lack of agency, so that our lives seem to be controlled by enormous forces outside, and there seems as if there's little we can do. Just take this COVID, for example, or maybe more fundamentally, something like climate change, where, again, big issues in the world, but every individual finds it very difficult to know how to contribute. Now, we can't on our own sort out the world's problems, but finding ways in which you can actively contribute to making a better world in all sorts of different dimensions, I think helps people again feel that they're underway, that there's a steadiness. It's a bit like riding a bicycle. When you're actually pedaling, you can keep upright, but when you stop, you tend to tilt one way or the other. And so finding some way of actually acting in the world in a way that you feel has contributed to making the world a better place, I think that's the other tip that I would give.
Thank you so much. I think that is a really good piece of advice on being repetitive of the work, maintaining the consistency. So I think that's really good. How do you manage or personally manage or cope up with the mental health when you are under stress, or you prefer any hobbies like that?
Well, the first thing I need to say, Omkar, is come out straight and say that I don't follow my own advice. The second thing to say is that when I was a student, I had quite a lot of mental health difficulties myself, and I've done so from time to time since. So I speak, as it were, from someone who struggles rather than someone who has won the victory, as it were. But first of all, over rhythm. Now, this might not surprise you and those who are watching this, but obviously as a chaplain, I'm a religious person as well. And part of a religious discipline is things like prayer and meditation and spiritual practice. So I try and make sure that I pray morning and evening as a sort of a framework for the day, sort of setting it out at the beginning and then reflecting on it at the end. And I'm quite a traditionalist, so I use the traditional words of the Church of England services rather than a rather more, well, there is a sort of free prayer, but I use the traditional words as well. And then during the day, I have in my mind several very short prayers. I haven't got a very good memory, so they all have to be super short for me to remember them, that I can say if I'm feeling under stress or anxious or wondering what to do. And so that I've got these little short prayers that I have in the back of mind and I bring out when I'm feeling, oh, gracious, what am I going to do? So that's one element. The other thing I think is important, though I'm bad at this and my wife is always nagging me, and quite rightly too, is to get some exercise. And I mostly, well, let me go back. Scottish country dancing is my, as it were, practical hobby. But unfortunately, all of that is completely closed down under COVID. And it didn't even come back into play because in dancing, it's usually indoors, you're touching each other with your hands and that sort of stuff, and obviously high exercise. So it's a very COVID risk activity. So it hasn't resumed. But the other thing I do is walking in the countryside. Now I'm very interested, this is my other hobby really, is botany, identifying plants. And one of the things that I do actually is I run a little botany group for students online. So if anybody is watching this and interested in identifying plants, get in touch, and then you would be welcome to join. And so that helps me watch and notice things in the countryside. I think that's really important. So these are two of the things that I do. And then the third one on the agency front is that I'm very concerned about sustainability, and I work with various people on sustainability projects of one sort or another, just to try and advance things along.
That's good to know. Thank you so much. I think you really summarized well on how you manage with the different aspects. I think when you are very when you're praying, I think that is one sort of calm and peace and coping up with your mental health as well. I think, if I'm not wrong. Yeah.
Well, I think you can be. I think it's a bit more complex than that actually, because I think a lot of people think, oh, meditation, that will keep you calm. In my experience, sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. By that I mean, if you're sitting there calmly and you're thinking about your own emotions and thoughts, if they're already in a rather bad place, it's very easy for them to run away and get worse. And that's one of the reasons why, for me, I'm not so keen on blank meditation, but to use the set words so that your mind is being channeled to think positively, as opposed to allow the negative thoughts to run away.
Yeah, I think yes, you're right. Okay, so my last question to you is that, do you have a Christmas message for students? Because now the students are under planning phase, and do you have any advice for them?
Well, first of all, I would say enjoy it, but whether you're a Christian or not, I hope that you might be able to, eat some food and meet up with family and all of those sort of things. But again, perhaps as a Christian minister, it won't terribly surprise people that I'd also say, try and plan in some Christian worship in that. Obviously, that's not going to be right for many people, but for those who are thinking about it, do try and include that, because the Christmas message is a very curious but wonderful one. It's about saying that God meets us in a baby. So it's not just that God meets us in an adult man like Jesus wandering around and teaching people or whatever it is, but it's also saying, well, actually God meets us in a baby and in babies, and that I think is I think one of the reasons why people love Christmas is that sort of sense that God isn't just some sort of bossy figure in the sky, but also something very sort of vulnerable and delicate that evokes our love and affection, just as a newborn baby does.
Yeah, I think, yes, you're right. Thank you for that. And thank you so much for your time, for joining with us and sharing your advices with the students and directly communicating with them. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We'll be again back. Thank you, Nigel. Again, we'll be back with another series. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.